Yo, what's up, guys? It's Talon. Still a little sick, so I'm coughing and whatever in this video like I was before. Doing another coaching, this time of a Fiora player. So we'll just get right into it. Basically talking a lot about deciding when to split push and team fight, and also kind of explaining how the lane phase works. So if you guys are interested in coaching yourself from a rank 5 sovereign autofill player, just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video. You still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So you said you're plat. Is that your highest rank, or what's the highest rank you've been to? Well,
I've gotten to Diamond with Dr. Mundo.
okay. And then are you mainly playing Fiora now, or you play a lot of champs?
No, I mainly just play Fiora right now.
Okay. I think I recognize. I swear I've coached this Kassadin. Actually, I think. I'm pretty sure I have. That's kind of funny. What do you feel like are usually the issues you have when you were playing?
I think my issue is that maybe I don't group for like objectives. I tend to just keep split pushing, and so my team will like group for Baron or whatever, and they'll lose it. And so I'll get like a tier 2 tower though for it, and so
Gotcha.
they'll get Baron, and then they tend to win after that. Like I think I won like the early game against this Gwen, but like I don't know, it still things go sideways.
Yeah, so first thing, this is a small thing, but when you have the advantage in lane, what you can actually do, you can walk up to these minions here and then drag them, like just like make them basically come to you. And what this does is it'll make it so that only one of your minions will get attacked, so that that one will die faster and it'll push into you. That's not a huge thing, and a lot of these smaller details you can go back in the replay or in the video to figure those things out or remember those. I'll write out the main points, but that's just one small thing to keep in mind. That helps a bit with like letting the lane push into you so that it's easier for you to kind of trade with the enemy and everything like that. But and then with Gwen, like again, do you know how Gwen works as a champion?
Yeah, her Q, the center of it, does true damage. She has life steal. She does percentage health damage.
Do you know what
Her
the
E is
purple thing
dash.
is? Like under the purple these things? See the two little purple things?
Uh, purple things. Oh, she gets attack speed, right?
No,
Or no, she has stacks up her Q.
yeah, and so the reason I'm saying that is the general point is don't trade when they have their abilities up and you don't. Like here, you go and try to trade with her and you don't have your first ability, and she does, and she has it stacked up. So you walk into her when she has an ability stacked up. Obviously, she wins the trade really hard on you, and you didn't have your ability up at that time, so then you're not really able to win the trade. So you got to trade better, more around your like cooldowns. That's the first kind of main thing to keep in mind. And then here, she's going to get level 2, and you're not, because she's obviously going to kill the minion first. And so playing around level 2 is a really important thing, which you'll either get level 2 from the third minion, or from the fourth minion, depending on like how long it has been, because obviously, you get some XP as the game is going on. And so you need to be very aware of when you're going to hit level 2 and then prioritize that. So like here, for example, instead of immediately trading with her, I'm trying to go back slightly in the replay, but instead of immediately trading with her after you kill this minion, what you should have done is realize this next minion is getting me level 2, right? Both the things, because you can see the circle is pretty close to level 2. It's pretty obvious. And so what we'd rather do here is you just walk at her, you start trading, like you can even try to hit that vital, you just auto this minion, and then as soon as you hit level 2 off this minion, you upgrade an ability, and you just start trading with her. Instead, you're trading down an entire level, and it only works because she sucks at the game. But had she not sucked at the game, you would just lose that trade really hard. And then here, small thing, but you could have first done your, like instead of using your second ability, and again, I know I'm putting out a lot of small details, these are the things you'll just go back and look at later to kind of get better at, and then the bigger details we'll talk about. But like here, when she walks up here, instead of using your second ability right away, the damage already got on you. You'd way rather just immediately use your first ability to go onto the vital here, auto attack, and then use your second ability like once you're over here for extra damage, and then you can just keep kiting her up here and basically just kill it for free. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so yeah, then you would have just already solo killed her here. So that's like obviously something that would be beneficial. But basically it's just kind of, you're, again, notice when are you trading, right? You're trading when you're level 2, she's level 3, right? That's why you lost that, is because of the level diff. And so you need to understand that if you don't, not having the level diff because you haven't pushed as many minions, you're gonna die. And so you said you felt like you won lane here, you might win later, but clearly the lane could have gone much better in the early game. And this is a matchup you should be winning. Like you win. This is just a very good matchup for Fiora in the early game. So the main things for your trading so far: understanding the level diffs, and then trading around ability cooldowns, like not making trades when your abilities are not on cooldown, and kind of keep track of your abilities and try to respond to her abilities with yours. So like I said, you can use your first ability to dodge her her first ability, right? Like, because you can just, you know, dash out of the thing. Or the same could be true. And like here, again, she just completely griefs. Like, there's no, like, you know, this is just her being dumb. And so then we end up getting kind of bailed out, which is good. But like, in terms of the approach to it, we need to be more aware of those things in order to actually kind of win the trades. And then do you know that your third ability is an auto attack reset? Do you know what an auto attack reset is?
So like auto ability, auto, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Because you weren't doing it here to clear the wave, so I just want to make sure you're aware of that. But yeah,
Would that be for my E or my Q?
both. They're both auto attack resets.
Okay.
So it's really important for things like when you ult, like you can say you run at someone, you ult them, you auto attack on one vital, then you dash to the next vital immediately because it'll auto reset. And then when you auto attack, you then third ability as you're autoing the third vital, and it's like really fast way to proc it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And then yeah, at this point in the lane, so your team's actually doing really well. And so again, this is why we don't want to pop our third ability right away. It's kind of the same thing. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so I keep coughing. But like here, notice how you pop your third ability immediately. What you would rather do is just dash onto them, auto attack, third ability. It's more damage, right? But instead, when you immediately use your third ability, you don't get much value. Or you can even use your first third ability on a minion just to get that bonus damage from like the second part of it. If you prefer that too, depending on the situation. What's up?
Q auto E is what you're saying?
Yeah, Q. Well, it depends on the situation. If you need to close the gap, then yes, you would Q auto E, and then you auto attack as you're clicking your E button again, right, for the second auto attack. You'd either do that or you just walk at them, auto attack, and then Q, and then auto attack E. I know it's a little confusing. If you want me to kind of demonstrate in practice tool at the end of this, I can do that as well. But it's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah, either way, again, like, I'm not really going over some of these specific things. She's just straight up, like, griefing into you, so there's not a ton, like, you know, she ends up throwing a really easy lead that she had, and so we at least are in a decent position gold-wise. But in terms of how we approach it, like, again, those are the main things we need to kind of work on, the things we talked about, and we'll write those down so that it's easier to kind of remember later. But at this point now, the main goal is just to push the wave and have lane prio so that we can rotate and help our team, or so that we can just continue having pressure. But I mean, you see a free angle trade on her, so obviously it works out. And then so yeah, even though we do make a lot of mistakes, you end up getting a really big lead, which is good. So now we can kind of talk about like approaching the game with a lead. So the first thing here is like, you don't actually need to trade with her. Again, you're down 2 levels, right? Or you're up 2 levels, rather. Like, she's never killing you, but you also have no mana. And so, based on this, you need to just do one of 2 things. You either recall for mana so that you're strong for the fight, or you just go here and you just hit the turret and you just get free plates. But fighting her, you don't have the damage to kill her with 0 mana. And so you end up recalling. I'm fine with that, because then you're going to be resetting and be strong for the fight. Also, do you normally rush Trinity Force, or do you rush your boots a lot, like when you're playing?
I think I rush Trinity Force just for like the sheen and that mana that sheen gets me.
I would say 95% of the time you should rush boots. It's way better for the early 1v1 and like for the lane phase. In a game like this where you're against a true damage champion, I don't necessarily hate you doing it, which is why like here I'm not complaining about it. But if you do it every game, you shouldn't. Especially if they have like the same damage type. in jungle and top lane, because then like say you get ganked right by Lee Sin and you're laning Darius, they're both AD, you're like insanely tanky as soon as you get that. And it's really, really hard to kill you, and you're going to be able to trade really effectively. But if you just have Sheen plus Longsword, which is roughly the same amount of gold, the value you get is very small, because it's just mathematically a lot less. Like boots just do a lot more in the early game. And so you're basically giving up a bit of that strength on like the first objective, where you would have your full Trinity Force to be stronger in the earlier part of the game. And that strength in the earlier part of the game is more beneficial, because you're very often not going to be part of the first team fight as Fiora, because she's more of a solo side laning type of champion. So there's no real need to hit that power spike on the Dragon / Herald, which is why we don't need to rush Trinity Force. Like I said, in this game, because they have true damage, you don't get as much value from the boots in the early game. So in this specific scenario, I'm okay with you doing it. But does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And then next thing here, don't go to the objective before pushing your wave. Now Gwen goes, she gets a free plate, and you lose this entire wave. That's 200 gold, and she gets probably 150 gold from plates. That's 350 gold loss for you. Your teammate was going to get this anyway. And yeah, it is. So like you're losing like 350 gold here. There's no reason to not just push your wave first. It's an extra like 5 or 10 seconds. And that's something you're going to want to do most of the time, is just push the wave out first and then rotate, because it also makes it so that then the enemy have to get stuck clearing that wave, and you still get to rotate and be there first. Or if the enemy rotate first, then they lose out on all that gold, similar to how you just lost out on this gold. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, and you can see here, right, like Mercury Treads are really good because it's Gwen and Nunu, like both AP champions again. So, and they have Kassadin. So like for this itemization this game, you probably get Mauve Malmortius like third item, maybe even second item, and you just side lane all game, and you never want to basically fight like the Lucian, because he's the only AD champion. You just have MR, magic resist, against every other champion, because Nami's also AP, and like you shouldn't really die. So it also, you kind of need to pay attention to the damage types of people, and if there's ever like the same top jungle, or in this case 4 AP champions, you just need a lot of magic resist, and like, make sure you're building that. And at this point, you really should just probably recall and spend your gold again. Like you could get this, you could get the Scorpion if you want, and then just recall, which is what you do, so that's fine. And so yeah, you guys end up losing this game, you said, right? But like you guys are very ahead at the moment, so kind of see what ends up going wrong in the later parts of the game. But it would be generally to side lane a lot, like would be your job. And most of the time your job is to side lane a lot. It's not really to the team fight. Okay, so this is the first mistake. So like you're not pushing this nearly fast enough. Once you get past 5 minutes, the goal is almost never to freeze. And if I ever say a term and you don't know what it means, just let me know. I'm just gonna assume you know what freezing and these things are, unless you say you don't. But anyways, you're never gonna want to freeze here, because all that does is you lose, or like you deny them, 100, maybe 200 gold. You're already really ahead of the Gwen here. We don't really care about getting getting her slightly more behind. We care about extending our lead more. That's the difference here. And so when you end up freezing,
my issue with like pushing is like she just sits on her tower, so I don't know what to do in that situation.
yeah. So I'll show you exactly what you get to do. I'll show you exactly what it is you get to do. So say that you push this. Let's go back to see how long we ended up freezing here. So it was here. So you ended up. It was what now the time's blocked. 7:30, right? 7:35, 7:40. Now this has been 20 seconds, right? That we end up being stuck here, and you could have, again, you're ahead enough. You could have just pushed the wave through here, and so you wasted about, let's say, 20 to 25 seconds. What you could have done if you just took 10 seconds to push it, you would have 15 seconds to now go ward. You could go ward the enemy Krugs, right? Because you just pushed the wave. By warding, you can find the enemy jungle. If you see that the enemy jungle camp is up, you can just straight up go and steal it. You have your flash, you're going to be safe. So one thing you can do is ward to get vision and then potentially steal camps. Another thing you can do is just move to another part of the map until a wave comes back. And then the third thing you can do is recall to spend your gold. So all of these things are way more beneficial than what ends up happening, which is just that you trade evenly with her, not even, you lose the trade, and nothing really comes from it. Like, you're basically thinking that you just have to be in your lane all the time, and that like if she just clears her wave under the tower, then it's like, oh, I can't do anything, she's just stuck there, right? But that is good because now you get to move to the other side of the map, you get to help your team somewhere else while she's stuck here doing nothing, right? Like, that's a net benefit to your team compared to what she's doing to her team, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're totally happy with that, is my point. Because if you just end up sitting here and then she does waste a bunch of time under her turret and you just kind of like, you know, just trade with her really evenly here. Luckily we won the trade, but it was like literally 1 HP, you know, like very close. There's a very high chance that we can throw the game through something like this. Whereas if we're just using the fact that we have a lead to pressure them under their turret and then rotate, we're always going to create advantages elsewhere. It's going to be way more beneficial. And then you should have recalled a lot earlier here as well. Once you get an advantage, once you like say take a turret, you push a wave, you get a kill, anything like that, if you have a lot of gold, most of the time you just want to recall and spend that gold so that you can be stronger, and then you get to come back. By the time the enemy respawn, you can continue to push your lead. And so again here, this is kind of what I'll show you. Instead of just split pushing permanently, I don't know exactly what you're going to do, it's going to be kind of a similar approach to what I was just talking about before, which is I want you to push this wave really hard first, and then use the fact that that wave is pushed to get to rotate first, instead of like just staying in the side lane trying to fight more. So we'll see what ends up happening. But basically, what you need to understand, I think this is kind of like the gist of it, is that the value in side laning is not that you're going to just go and you're going to kill 19 turrets and you're going to end the game through a back door. The value with side laning is that if you win your lane, you get an advantage. You use that advantage to get the lane pushing so the enemy have to respond to that lane. And then as they're responding, instead of sitting there watching them, you use the time that they're responding to rotate. And then once they do respond to the wave and it comes back to a neutral point like this, then you go back on the wave and you keep trading like that. And then in terms of understanding your trading like as a champion, there's a lot of times where you kind of can bait out her second ability and then wait until the second ability is gone and then trade instead of trading like inside of it, because then she's going to do like pretty well in these trades, like you kind of see here. I mean, you just mess up mechanically, but again, like notice how what you end up trying to do again, and I know I keep going back in the replay, whatever, but I'm fine if we go a little over time, like that's fine with me. So unless you don't want me to, let me know. But either way, instead of focusing so hard on this 1v1, you need to focus again on the wave. Like this wave needs to be pushed first, because imagine this fight, but there's not 4 minions hitting you. Like, do you see these 2 minions are hitting you, this one's hitting you, this one was hitting you, none of yours are, right? So you're losing the health in that sense as well. You're not killing minions, which would potentially get you level 12. Here, I don't think it'd quite get you level 12, but like, again, focus more on those minions first, get those minions pushing, and then focus on the fight afterwards, or then focus on rotating. Just have a much larger focus on the waves. It's the same with the objective too, where you immediately went to the first objective of the game, but you didn't focus on your wave at all. That kind of all makes sense, like why these waves are so important.
Yeah, I figured that I had item advantage on her, which is why I kind of took the fight.
Yeah. You should be able to hard win. It's just you mechanically played it, like you messed it up as well, which is fine. Like again, she gets damage reduction in her second ability, and sometimes the targeting gets weird in her second ability, you know, like the circle thing. And so every time that you've been fighting her, she uses it and then you go on her. You just need to bait that spell out, and then when that spell is gone, then go on her. But like you keep letting her use it and get full value, which is kind of the same thing again as her first ability as well, where it gets stacked up and then you you jump on her and you let her trade with you. So like it's just a general thing with spells that you're not really understanding. Like, okay, I can just find a way to respond to a spell properly, which is like oftentimes maybe you use your second ability to respond to something, or maybe you dash out of it, or maybe you just wait for it to go on cooldown, like these types of things. But a lot of times you're ending up like letting them get full value out of their spells when they don't really need to. And so then the trading ends up being a lot closer. And then you missed a dash, which like means that you didn't get the healing, you didn't get the vital. That happens. And then after the second dragon, right now it's fine where you are, but where should you be on the map in about 30 seconds?
In Dragon Lane,
Why?
because Baron's gonna be popping up here in about 40 seconds.
Yeah, okay. So we'll see if you end up doing that, but that is that's completely correct. Yeah, like you can get this, and then I would recall. I would spend my gold, I would recall, and then I would go bot side. And so we'll see if that ends up happening. If it does, it's perfect. We go top side. And so this is one of the most common mid-game mistakes to happen with most split pushers. So much so that I could pretty much predict it was going to happen before it happened, because I see it happen with like everyone that I coach. And so now we end up getting in a spot where luckily she kind of ints into us, but even here we trade, so it's not the best. But say you were getting pressure on the other side of the map, obviously a lot more beneficial. And now what happens when you die a lot in these mid-game like scenarios, you end up bleeding your entire advantage. Like the gold advantage that you had, you're slowly just, it's going away in a way. Like you should already be on Mob Milmortius by this point, because we should have been alive long enough to farm, but now we're kind of, you know, having these back-to-back deaths where now again, the Gwen is catching up. She's going to scale really well, and now we're going to kind of be in a spot where it's going to be a little more rough. So, and at this point, you do eventually get here, but now they're fighting. I would probably go mid at this point. I think you just have to go mid because they might get Baron off this. And so something you kind of need to understand as a split pusher is if there's ever like a threat of the enemy getting Baron, you're going to just have to rotate. Sorry, I keep coughing. You're going to have to rotate just to prevent that, instead of just going here, because now the enemy will possibly be able to get Baron off of it. It would be very dangerous for like our actual outcome of the game. And here, if you just end up going and dying, and then the enemy get Baron, it's not really very beneficial. Luckily, the Nami is like, again, very lowy low, and didn't just hit the wave, because you shouldn't have even gotten this turret. But had we gone towards mid earlier and realized that we could prevent that, then you could have prevented the Baron. And again, I want to point out, it's pretty much the same thing as like I was telling you earlier, just in a different like context, where it's okay, you have this wave pushing, right? Like it's already pushing. The enemy are the ones who have to respond next. You can rotate now because you just pushed the wave, right? But what you do, you stay on the side. And sometimes it's fine to stay on the side if you think you can't have any benefit, but we can look at their health bars. They're all really low, and your teammates are still, a couple of them are alive, and you have flash, you have ultimate. You could 100% go and clean up this fight. So much more often you need to be like, okay, I pushed the wave, can I do something now? Can I rotate? Can I help my team? And if you think you can't help your team, then stay on the side lane and do what you did here, because this is going to be the best to stall the game if you think there's zero chance of you being able to like help. But you have a bunch of magic resistant 4 AP champions. They're low health. You have flash, you have ultimate. There's no reason you wouldn't be able to just hard carry that fight. And then I would probably buy teleport at this point, personally. Just because it seems like the main thing that we're going to need to do is just like stall out on the side lane, and then possibly TP like late to a fight. So I'd buy like teleport. You could also buy, if you like Proto Belt, you can buy Proto Belt. If you like the Hydra, you can buy that as well. Those are both really good for combat, but I would definitely have an enchant by now. What enchant do you usually use?
Hydra for Fiora.
Yeah, then if you like Hydra, then that'd be perfectly fine too. But you definitely should have bought it by now. So, okay, and then this flash is maybe gonna, yeah. I mean, that flash is just really greedy. Like, there's no reason to flash, which is just a mechanical thing. But, and I mean, this just looks like panic to me, I guess. Because, like, again, do you know how Lucian works?
No, I've never really played Lucian.
Okay, so is this like flash because you don't know how he's gonna like respond, or?
I was trying to flash like right behind him so I could hit that vital that's right there. Because I kind of one issue I run into with Fiora is her mana. I run out of mana a lot with her. And
Yeah.
so I was trying to like hit it like just basic attack it, but I think I flashed too far.
Yeah, so I would just say the first thing is Lucian only has one dash, and it's not like a super long range dash, so he's never really going to escape you here. And you were on the side, like in this situation, you're on the side where he can't walk here, right? Like he's stuck. So if you just kept auto attacking him, either he walks here and then you just hit the vital for free without flashing, or he runs this way, then you just flash at the end auto attack. But like, and again, it's just a mechanical mistake, so I'm not like gonna like over point out, but like these are things that I've seen you do frequently, is like kind of had some times where you're missing the vitals a lot or you're missing a lot of flashes, so I think it's something to point out still. But yeah, you could have just let him like keep walking into you, you would have just been able to kill. And yeah, you do run out of mana. I mean, that is part of the champ, which is why recalling relatively frequently is important. And when you're doing your wave clear on the side lane, don't use your second ability ever to wave clear. I didn't really point it out because it's not the biggest deal ever. but it is something that will lose your mana pretty quickly, and it doesn't actually clear very fast at all. Like, so just don't use your second ability to wave clear basically ever, unless you're like getting zoned off a minion, you're just trying to get that one minion gold or something maybe, but at this point it's fine to be on side. Yeah, I mean, at this point, your job is mostly just a side lane. Again, we're trading really hard. I don't really know if we even win this. I think it's pretty close. You would have killed her, you just didn't second ability again properly. Oh, that's nice. Probably just recall here again. Like, the reason we want to recall, what do we gain from this? Like, what in your mind, what do you gain from saying and getting these minions?
I'm just trying to. I'm trying to clear their side, their minions, so my minions can push. I'm trying to get the tier 2 tower. Is my
So you're trying to
goal.
get the tier 2 tower.
Yeah.
Does the tier 2 tower do anything to win you the game?
I guess I was trying to get gold for my team. That was kind of my goal because we're not really winning.
A turret gives you, I don't know the exact gold, maybe 600 gold global. Like the total gold gotten from it is maybe 1,000 max. Most of that, like a lot of that is going on you because it goes by the person who's, you know, who gets it. And so you'd give maybe 100 or maybe 200 gold. I think it's like 100 gold to your team. That gold is going to do very little to win us the game. Like very, very little. Nothing really. And you have like no indication that any of your teammates are close to an item or anything. And so the reason I ask you this question is just I want to understand the thought process. And I want to explain. The death timers at this point in the game are like 45 seconds or so. The Elder Dragon spawns in a minute because it spawns at 18 minutes. And the Baron spawns in 40 seconds. If you die here, the enemy get Baron and you lose the game. You already have enough gold for your item, and this turret doesn't do anything to win or lose us the game. Because this turret dying doesn't matter. It doesn't give us gold for another item. It doesn't do anything. We have the gold for the last item that we're going to get before the important fight. And so you just need to recall immediately, spend your gold, and not risk randomly dying. Like, again, it likely doesn't matter. You likely just get out right after anyways. It doesn't matter. But two people could be anywhere on the map right now. We have no idea where they are. Like, that guy nearly just killed us. Like, we were like, if he didn't mess up his dash, he might just kill us there. Just completely risky. It doesn't get us anything. Like, we didn't get any value from it. The turret didn't die because, again, there's two people alive. One thing to understand about split pushing, if you don't know where people are or have a reason to think they're in a certain place, don't just hope they're not there and then just go for the turret because you're like, oh, I hope. And then, like, even here, right, that was literally like 0.5 seconds from throwing the game as well. But don't just hope that the enemy aren't, you know, going to be there. Only do things when you actually know, like, okay, they're not there for this reason or for an objective or whatever. And then here, your job should probably just be to hard pressure bot side and then rotate, probably find a flank. But you're probably not just going to win through straight split pushing this. Like, at this point, you're just going to want to pressure them, and then you're going to want to kind of draw pressure here. You're not going to want to hard engage right away onto the Gwen. You're going to want to just keep drawing people to you on the side and then getting pressure. And then, like, once someone has to respond here, you don't want to just take the 1v1. You want to take the advantageous fight here. Because, again, there's a huge wave pushing. They're being drawn here. You use that to create, like, an advantage, right? Instead of just having another 1v1. But you're doing this, right? And then this is what we kind of end up seeing happen. It's just something like this where I think you might actually kill him, so that's a good outplay at least. But, like, you can easily create a way bigger advantage by just making them respond to a certain wave and then leaving, instead of just going on that same wave and just having a 1v1, which is what we've been doing, like, very frequently, where you're always going to the wave that's already pushing, and then you're just closer to the enemy tower, you're closer to their base. They're able to easily win that fight against you most of the time. Luckily, you get a kill out of it, so it's not that bad, but, like, that's frequently been kind of how you're responding, or, like, what's been happening in a lot of these situations, and that's why you're not able to push your leads as hard.
So
It
I
still
should
ends up...
be
Yeah, what's up?
once I drag somebody to a lane, I should be going back mid and helping my team.
Usually. Now, like, there's so many situations, so I want to make it clear that the game has like a lot of like nuance to it, right? Like it's not just like one answer every time. And so there could be a situation again where you're in that same situation with the Gwen, but you're completely shitting on the Gwen. You're way, way ahead of Gwen. And your team is super, super behind. In a case like that, if you think that you're not going to help that fight because you're just going to lose the fight anyway because your team is so behind, then you hard play for the side lane. So basically, when you're pushing the wave and then going and helping your team, that's when you think your presence will impact the fight. But if you think that your team's so behind that it doesn't matter, then you're going to stay on the side. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I assume you would. I don't know why you didn't ult, but I guess you're just trying to save it. Okay, well, the greed of the ult. Bro, you could also just, I'll just point out, you could have Q flash, you know, to kill. But, like, right here, like, at this point, just Q flash, you just kill her. Do you know how to Q flash? Like, is that a combo you ever use, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't think you can flash Q or it's like you
So,
can't do the other one. Like you can't. It's either you can't flash Q or you can't Q flash. It's one of those.
no, it's
It's just
not. You can do
blocking the-
both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, you can flash Q on every champ because that's, yeah. But no, you can definitely do both. And here again, we probably just pressure aside and then rotate rather than like immediately rotating again. So you kind of notice, right, how here, and again, even if we do want to talk about mechanics as well, after you end up, you don't have your dash now because I guess you got it not canceled. I was going to say you could Q flash, but you got it canceled. So, but again, like you could pressure the side first and then you rotate after. Like you clear this entire wave, then you rotate and help the team. That way they get split up. It gives you a better angle to go in. Whereas like in this fight, you're staring straight at them. Your champion, it's really hard to just stare straight at them and just run at them and like win. So like when you're in a situation like this, it's just going to be really hard to actually win the fight. And then when you are in a, we call this front to back, basically, like, you know, you're staring at each other, you're just hitting the people you see. Fiora is really good at targeting tanks. Like, you do true damage on your vitals, so your vitals will melt the hell out of tanks. And so in this situation, if you ulted Nunu and you hit her with all 4 vitals, like you popped all of them, you would literally kill her because you have Elder Dragon. But you go for a much harder target who's way more mobile and harder to kill, and then this happens. So you shouldn't have even been in this fight, like I said. You should have pushed the side lane first, and then when that side lane gets pushed and the enemy have to respond, then you can rotate, as we've kind of talked about before. But also, don't be afraid to target tanks in team fights, because you actually do melt them really well. And if you kill them or you pop the vitals, you get that healing circle, which is very beneficial for fights. So.
Okay, so focus the more tankier champions when I ult.
Not always, to be clear. Like, again, it's all situational, and so I know it's hard, right? It's like I'm supposed to tell you what to do, but then I'm telling you, well, it's situational. But obviously, if you can kill the enemy carry, you can go and kill them. Like, I'm not telling you not to go kill them. But yeah, a lot of times when there's a tank in front of you, you just ult them, you do a bunch of damage to them, they're going to get melted. That's usually really beneficial for Fiora and team fights. But if you see an angle to easily one-shot the squishy, you know, still go for it. Just depends, but especially when they're like as far back as, you know, the Lucian was in that situation. And then again here, I would probably just spend my gold. Don't use your second ability to clear waves. It's not really faster. But yeah, after this, I would just recall to spend my gold and to have more mana, which I think you do. So that's good. And then yeah, buy this Hydra. It's only 500 gold. I would say usually buy Hydra after like after your second item, maybe after your third item. And then we don't really need to be like hard fighting here again. We can just go and push out a side lane because they're going to pressure our base at this point. So we'd rather have gotten that bot lane pushed out so that they don't pressure multiple waves. And then this was obviously not a good idea. Not much to say about it. You know what happens. And I assume you just lose. So again, I'm going to go over the other replay and then we'll write out the notes and everything. But so far, again, the early game, make sure you're focusing more on the minions, like the level diff and hitting the minions first. Then make sure you're pushing out the waves before you rotate to the first objective. Buy boots first, rather than buying, whatever. Trinity right away. And then make sure you're split pushing opposite side of Baron. And then, yeah, just understand you can draw people, use the side lanes more to draw people to you and then rotate rather than just perma staying on the side lane if you feel like your presence can actually change a team fight. Does that all make sense? Do you have any questions about the first game or any more thing you do want to talk about before we go into the next one?
No, it makes sense. I see where I'm messing up.
Okay.
Well, I feel like I won early against the Gwen. I wasn't understand. I didn't understand why I lost that one. If I'm being
Yeah.
completely honest, 'Cause I
You
feel like
didn't,
I
and
won.
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Feel like I won the mid or like the early to mid game against Gwen, and I tried to use that to pressure the side lanes.
Yeah, and you're like, I will say, one, the gameplay, like, remember, she killed you like right away early game and then played it poorly. So I'm not pointing this out to like Flame. I'm just saying the early game was only one because she played really bad. We still have a lot of things we need to improve in the early game to win more consistently against players who don't int into us. But when you did have that lead, she was able to catch up in gold. Like when you were at 10k gold, she was also at 10k. So even though you won against her and you were winning a lot of fights, her gold was still very similar to yours because you're not utilizing these waves properly, or once you push the wave, you then go and find gold elsewhere, or you pressure her, you find something to do. Like you need to be more frequently having something to do with your time when you have a lead. But yeah, overall, like I think that kind of, we went over all that. So yeah, we'll just go into the next game now as well and kind of see. At this point, again, he's going to hit the level up first, and so I want to see if we're paying attention to it. I don't know. No, okay, so, right. You see the same issue, right? Trading level 2 to level 1. You're still trading. Okay, so you don't know how Darius works, I'm assuming, right?
He stacks up his passive on you. If he hits you with 5, he does his big bleed.
And so you know he becomes much, much stronger when he has 5 stacks, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was slightly earlier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like you could have walked away way earlier and you'd still even try to auto him again and let him get another auto on you with his stacks. You were showing, like the way that you showed this, I legit just thought you didn't know how Darius worked because you walked into him with stacks. You didn't think about how he's going to respond. You didn't think about the abilities that he would use on you. All these types of things, which to me, you're just not thinking about how the enemy are going to respond. There's the Gwen again, where she had her thing stacked up, and then you walked into her without an ability. Here, kind of same thing. You let him get the level up, you let him use your abilities on you, you let him keep autoing you, even though that's going to get him to more stacks, which is more damage. So we just kind of need to be thinking more like, how is my enemy actually going to fight me? Like, what are they going to do? If you don't know how the enemy is going to respond to you or how they're going to play, because maybe you just don't know how the champion works, like in a different case, just go watch a video of anytime you're like, dude, what does this champion even do? Go watch a video of them. Like, just, that's going to be the simplest way to then figure it out later. But for the champs that you do know how they work, you need to be actually thinking in your mind, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to respond to me? These types of things a lot more frequently, because right now you're kind of just not even thinking about that type of thing. And then again, the level diff and the trading when your abilities are down. So kind of the same mistakes that we've been seeing before. At this point, I would just recall after pushing this, even though it's going to be kind of a bad recall. There's not really much else you can do. I think you'll still get your boots, so. No, because we didn't rush boots. So again, say that you'd rush boots here, you'd literally be on steel caps right now, which would be really good. And just generally rush steel caps a lot more. That's just my opinion. I guess you're rushing Gluttonous Greaves here. I'm not really a fan of going like full squishy build where you're just going for lifesteal boots. If you prefer that, you go for it. I don't think it's very good, but that's up to you. And then again, you're using your second ability really early. So this is actually something, and again, if you don't know, I haven't played the Fiora in a while, but I've probably played 700 games of Fiora. Like I used to play as champion a bunch. And Darius is probably the matchup I've played the most of any matchup for Fiora. You don't need to try to predict every time. First of all, notice how you're trading where he has 6 minions, they're going to hit you more, and he's going to hit level 5 before you, so you don't want to be trading in the first place because of the level diff, the same thing we talked about. Even the fact that he has more XP is very dangerous for us. But given that we are trading with him, you don't need to use your second ability preemptively against Darius. You can use it just to block like the first ability damage or to block some damage instead of using it to try to predict his third ability and get the stun. Like most of the time that's not necessary and you're still going to win the trade. If you just block his first ability, you'll win the trade. So anytime you see the Darius first ability, like block that. Like you see that right there. That's what you need to block, because you see how much damage. That's 130 damage in lifesteal, 46 lifesteal. That's 176 net damage that you would have blocked there, because he wouldn't get the healing, and you would deal damage to him. I don't know the exact number, but you would that'd be like a 200 positive trade for you, right? That's going to be more than trying to predict that third ability, which is way harder to predict. You would agree, right? Because it's way quicker, not very easy to see. So when you're trading with him, just use your second ability to block that. Or use your first ability to go inside of the first or of his first ability. So like another thing you can do, you straight up just walk at him, and then if you see him, like if he does hook you, then you can immediately spam your second ability, or you can just dash into the first ability as well. Because this ring, again, maybe you know how Darius works. If you go inside of this ring, like into the the smaller part, it won't deal damage to you, and he won't even get a stack from it. So you will hard win the trade if you're either able to first ability inside of his first ability, or you're able to second ability his first ability. Don't try to rely on hitting that third ability. And then again, notice how you're trying to trade even when he's close to full stacks. Again, what did we do? We dashed onto him with full stacks. And look at this, right? What did I just tell you, right? Trading with the level diff. He's going to level up. It's scary. What did he do? He leveled up mid-fight. And that's what's going to happen when we're constantly not aware of these level diffs. So it's really the exact same mistake we saw in the first game, right? Like, which is good, right? We're finding the same mistakes, which is exactly what we'd want. It's way easier than if we found 20 different things to work on. So your early game, it's very straightforward. You don't understand how your abilities interact with other people's abilities. Like, you don't understand how you're supposed to respond. And part of this is you're just going to figure out the more you play, the more you watch other people play. So if you're ever confused on matchups, again, do these types of things and just think to yourself, like legitimately, just think, how can my abilities negate the enemy abilities? It's that actually that straightforward. It's not an overly complex thing. And then again, the level diffs and the just trading around our own ability cooldowns and our own champion strengths. Because if we also think about it, what does Darius want? He wants a long fight, right? Because he wants to get his stacks up. What does Fiora want? You have Grasp. What does Grasp do? It's a short rune. Like, we're just trading for that Grasp proc. That's all we're trying to get. We're trying to get that one proc on the Vital, and then we just recall. And so you're giving him exactly what he wants by letting him have these long fights, when you should be focused on getting your Grasp up on a minion, like autoing until until your Grasp is up, and then trading around that Grasp proc, around your Vital proc. I'm gonna go get water, so it'll be like half a second because my throat. 1 second.
Okay.
All right, I'm back. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, just making sure. And then yeah, at this point we're pretty behind. I'm assuming it's just gonna be kind of. I don't mind you pushing. I would push harder here again. So like at this point, this is actually also kind of something that's important to talk about, especially. And you see Darius, so now you go quicker. This is something that's important to talk about. When you fall behind on a split pusher, it's actually totally okay to just die. Like, you can start just being pretty okay with dying, because every time that you die, you become worth less gold, to the point that after like 3 deaths, you're worth like 150 gold. And your main focus should just be the wave and making sure that's pushed above all else. Because if you constantly have the wave pressuring, you're at least drawing someone to you, or you can get some amount of value. But if you just sit there and you kind of freeze again, you were just freezing there until the enemy would come, and then you saw the mid, so then you start pushing. If you just sit there and freeze constantly, you're just going to keep falling behind. The enemy are going to do what I told you to do, which is they're going to just rotate. They're going to be able to get way more value in other parts of the map. They're going to get more gold. They're going to win fights, whatever. And then you're going to be providing no value. So if you're at least pushing the wave, even if you end up dying more, you're at least drawing some amount of pressure. You're drawing people to you, and that's going to be a lot more beneficial. So. And I'm guessing what you're thinking is, well, what happens if they are there and then they freeze on me? Like, is that something you're thinking about, or?
Yeah, that's why I don't really push too hard, so I don't want them to freeze the wave on me.
Yeah. And so if they freeze on you, you are going to fall behind. all that you have to do is just either focus on the wave and be okay with dying, or just leave until they decide not to freeze. Like, they're not going to freeze forever. Also, you could have just ulted here, but they're not going to freeze forever. So if they just end up like staying there, just sitting there and freezing, just go to another part of the map. You're already behind, and you need to understand, as a top laner, when you're behind, your goal is not to carry the game and get a bunch of gold. Your goal is to do whatever you can to make the game easy for your teammates. And so if you can make the game easy for your teammate by just going towards mid lane and just pissing off their mid laner so that your mid laner gets a free like lead, that is completely beneficial for you. Like, that is totally fine. You're happy with that. You're no longer thinking, I need to get a bunch of gold. If I get denied gold, my game's over. You're just thinking, okay, now that I'm behind, how can I at least provide some amount of value to my team? Like, that's the general job of a top laner, is to provide pressure and to provide value for your team in some way. You're essentially support. Like, you should think of yourself as support. You shouldn't think of yourself as like a hard carry. Now, when you have a big lead, again, you're going to do all those things we spoke about in the last game, right? So like, the last game is very different in how you'd approach it, and we've explained that. We talked about that. And so there's different ways you have to approach the game depending on if you are strong or weak. Whereas here, what are you doing? You're trying to trade with someone who's way ahead of you. Like, you have learned from many, many trades. He's going to beat you every time, right? Like, we've seen it, like 5 or 10 trades. We've lost all of them. We've nearly died. We've lost a bunch of pressure. At this point, your job is to clear the wave and hope that the enemy just gets like stays here. Like, you're happy for Darius to stay here because he's way stronger than you, right? So if he's not helping your team or his team in the fight, and you're not helping your team, that's beneficial, right? Because he's way stronger than you. And so if he's just stuck here, that's fine. He's going to be stuck here way less if he kills you, right? Like, if he just ends up trading really hard on you and just winning this trade, well, then he's not going to be stuck here as long. He's going to get the turret as well because you weren't focused on the minion wave. And now you're stuck being or having the recall. Well, he can get the wave, he can get the turret, he can get way more gold, and then he can rotate and help the team. So you just need to be understanding your job at a point like this, which is literally just to draw pressure, to get the enemy who's stronger than you stuck, that type of thing. And then another thing is, the best time to die more when you are behind is when there's no objective. So this is when you want a hard push, because there's no objective, there's nothing to do. And so in a situation like this, go and just push this bot wave really quickly. And then again, you can rotate, you can push a turret, you can literally die for the turret at this point. Like, we don't care. The goal is to just start getting the lane to push really hard. Another thing, second ability usage. You often use your second ability after someone does all the damage to you. Like, look what she did. She uses her third ability, second ability, first ability. She used all 3 of her abilities right now. And then you use your second ability afterwards, which means that, what did you block? You didn't even end up blocking that. But let's say you did block it. All you did was you blocked the first ability coming back. And now it's on a 14-second cooldown, so you can't trade with her. Now imagine you didn't use your second ability, and right after this, you jumped onto her, you traded like this, but you had your second ability. You could literally ult her right now, and what would you get? You get her ult, right? And so now you'd have your second ability, you would get her ult out, and you would win that trade, because again, you're behind, so your goal is just, I want to get things out of my opponents. I want to blow the Ahri flash. I want to blow the Ahri ultimate. I don't want you to blow Ahri, but like, you know, the other parts, like, that's the stuff that's important. Just get all those things out of her because she's more valuable than you. You don't matter, and when you don't matter, it means you can just literally be like very reckless and just get these things out when there's no objective. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then to be clear, when you're playing like this, when an objective is up is when you have to start playing more like, you know, caring about your life. So say there's like, you know, 25 seconds before the next objective spawns. In that situation, you no longer want to just like disregard your life, basically, because then you need to start actually, like, you know, worrying about dying. And so then you're just going to start drawing pressure to you. Just try to be like, oh, hey, I'm here. Try to get someone to come by just showing yourself on the map, and then just try to drag their attention, draw them around as your team goes for the objective. Whereas again, when if you're stronger, and so like, again, to generalize it, when you're stronger, more often it's going to be push that wave, use the pressure to push the wave, and then go and help your team. Again, if we think that we can actually impact the fight. And then when you're more behind, it's going to be like, I want to just show myself and then start dragging someone around and make them get stuck here so they can't go help their team because they're more strong than me. And then yeah, I like going I like going in their jungle and getting vision like this. And again, just mess with them. Like there's no objective up, there's nothing to do. It's fine for you to just mess with them. Because like again, if we actually think about it, like how can you can kill him here, by the way. You definitely, yeah. I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, that's good. And so yeah, you mess with these people like this, and these are the types of things you can do as well. Like that's perfect. And now you probably get turret. Very good. Yeah, now at this point your gold is not that bad. There's I think you should still go bot here because the second dragon hasn't spawned yet. So you should still be bot side. Yeah. Because say that you go bot side here, you get to push out this wave again. One, you might even, if we actually look at where you are compared to where he is, you might have just caught him again. But either way, pushing this wave out first and having the pressure on the side, that's going to be way more beneficial. And then, again, you could have rotated afterwards, like after you push it. But when you don't get that pressure, now no one's drawn to bot side. And this is obviously a bit greedy. It kind of worked out, though. I'm not a fan of the play, but it worked out, so. Like diving Ahri under her turret when she has ultimate should never work. And then you also see, right, like imagine in a hypothetical world, a very similar thing happened, but it was on this side of the map. There wouldn't be 4 people there, right? Like there's just not going to be 4 people when the dragon's about to spawn. But when the dragon's about to spawn and you try to do something like that on the side lane, everyone's there. And so even if you end up killing one, you're only killing one. Whereas if you kill one on the other side of the map, that's probably the only person there, and now you get a free reign on the turret, or you get to rotate for free, and that person's dead. So that's another reason why you need to be on the correct side. And so now going top side here is good. And I'm skipping through because we're mostly talking about the decision making here at this point. There's not really that many like mechanical things more to talk about, so we're just going to be skipping through a lot more at this point, since it's somehow a 32-minute game. What's up? Sorry.
I just said that's okay.
That's kind of unfortunate. Your ult expired on the person. You don't have anti-heal. I would definitely want anti-heal this game. I mean, I'd probably just get Bramble Vest. I don't think I'd really need Frozen Heart. I also don't think you need Tier. I mean, yeah, I would just say the build should be Bramble Vest for sure in there. You know itemization pretty well, or?
Yeah, I got Tier because I kept running out of mana, and then I got Frozen Heart because I was trying to slow down Darius.
Slow down his attack speed?
Yeah, to slow him down in general. I think he had like what, Flash and Ghost.
I don't think Frozen Heart slows people. It only slows their attack speed.
Oh.
I mean, I'm like 95% sure. You're making me question myself, but actually I can't do this because it'll show something on my browser that I can't show. Not Pornhub, but where I go to school would show, so I won't do that. But no, Frozen Heart, you know, I'm like 95% sure does not slow people. But yeah, no, it just slows their attack speed, which is not like necessarily bad in the Darius, but the Thornmail would get a lot more value from his healing and everything like that. You could go Frozen Heart, but yeah, no. Also, the way the math works is like if you're gonna build Frozen Heart and Thornmail, it's pretty bad because they both give mostly just armor, and building a bunch of armor without HP is not very good. So I'd just go Sterak's. I don't really think you need the Tier either, but if you really want the Tier, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Again, the enchanting too. I would definitely prefer the enchant by this point in the game. Yeah, I mean, it's fine to go here at this point. Your team is going to get killed though, so it's pretty bad. But at this point, pretty much just have to... I mean, yeah, I guess you do have to just defend. So. I didn't realize it's already this late in the game. The game goes on like forever. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of times with your second ability, you're just kind of panicking with it though. Like you use it almost always at the start of a fight instead of like to respond to abilities again. A lot of times you'll go in and you'll hope like, I hope they're gonna use their and again, every time you're clearing a wave here, stop using your second ability because you're just that's where all your mana is going, you know, like half the time. But every time you go in, you're pretty much just hoping they immediately use all of their abilities on you, right? Like, and that's why you're just using your second ability. A lot of times, I would say you got to be a bit more like careful, like kind of wait for their spells, like understand, you know, what are they going to use, when are they going to use these spells, based on just paying attention to what champion you're against, that type of thing. And again, look at your ability spamming here. Like, this is why you have no mana, is because you've used like 14 Qs and like, oh, is this 2 games in this oh, okay. So yeah, here, I'll record it. If you have questions as I'm writing out these notes and everything like that, let me know, and we'll just continue going over all the main points. If I write something it doesn't make sense to you, let me know and I'll write it out differently, or like change the wording, because I'm going to be sending it to you, so you know, it has to make sense to you. So yeah, just stop me at any time, that type of thing. We're going to go over the early game first. So thinking about the early game, the first main thing is just play around level diffs. Does that make sense when I type it like that, or?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so yeah, that's definitely the first main thing to keep in mind. Then ability usage, make sure not trade when we don't have abilities up. Think about how enemy will respond in terms of abilities, and think about how we can encounter that. Now, obviously, again, depends on the like situations. I'll just write if you're you into Darius Q as like an example. Just, you know, just one example of a type of thing you can kind of do that's important. And then generally, I just think it's important to think about the goal of your champion versus the enemy. So again, like Darius wants a long trade, long fights. Viewer wants those short trades. So kind of understanding that kind of difference too is very important. Rush boots, rush defensive boots in most matchups. Early game, then like in the mid game, like once the first objective's coming, make sure push the wave for rotating first objective. Then split push opposite side of next objective. A lot of times you end up going back to the same side. We saw that a couple times, and we saw why that kind of ends up not working out super well. And then kind of talking, because I think this is probably like the most important thing overall, is like when to split push versus when to side lane. And I would say, again, it's pretty dependent on a lot of things. So I'm just going to kind of describe a couple scenarios, or like write them out here. So first kind of thing is typically past mid game, we want to push the wave and not freeze. After pushing, you can either recall, rotate for vision, or go to another lane. Whereas you're and I will write and sometimes you can just fight in the lane if you are much stronger. But basically just don't just like try, like your only goal, the only thing that you really do is kind of split push, and just understand there's like a lot more to the game. You don't just have to always be on the side lane split pushing. Once you are on that side lane, you push that out, you can then, you know, rotate, get a lot more value in other ways. And then once the enemy like end up having to be drawn to you, then you go back to the side lane, you know, once they push that wave and whatever, and it's kind of like a teeter-tottering back and forth, that type of thing. And then only rotate team fights if you're if you being there will do more and the enemy being there. Like the enemy top laner. There. Enemy top laner. And then if you being there like won't be as valuable as the enemy top laner being there, your goal is just to kind of keep them there, like how we described in the second game. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to think about what else we talked about. I mean, the small thing is I would say less ability spamming too. Less ability spamming because we run out of mana too much. Like don't W for wave clear ever, basically. Then just W usage in general. Don't always W at the start of a fight. Be more patient with it. Those are the main things I can think of that we spoke about. Are there other things or other questions you have or anything else?
So what do you think overall? If the one thing in your opinion I should work on, if I had to work on any of this, what do you think is my number one issue?
I mean, I think like your mechanics in terms of how it relates to other people is really bad. Like what I mean by that is when you were trying to fight someone, you're just going in. You're not actually thinking about like what are they gonna do, you know? Is Darius gonna hook me in? Is Darius gonna keep trading on me and win that trade? You're just thinking about your own champion. I think that you just only think about the game in terms of what you want. So I think you need to be able to understand a lot more how the game is, like how top laners as a whole work. And so I think it might be valuable for you to like, again, anytime that you play against a champ and you're really like, what does this do? You go and just watch one video of a player playing that champion to understand how their abilities work and that type of thing. And then when you're going into the game, you just think to yourself, like, you know, I want you to think before every game, what is the enemy's goal? Like the enemy top laner's goal when they're fighting, when they're trading, how do they want to trade with me? That type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or anything?
This was recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll start uploading it